Hello everybody, this is Josh from Riskers and Wrenches. I do want to apologize if you hear birds chirping in the background. I have chased those damn blue jays, or whatever the hell they are, away 5 or 6 times, recorded this segment 5 or 6 different times as well, and they keep staying around. They keep coming back to the tree right next to me and chirping their damn heads off. But in this video, I'm going to show you guys the cheapest way to drivetrain swap, i.e. the motor, the transmission, the brakes, the rear end, all that stuff of your project. Now, it doesn't matter if it's an old car like the Chevelle here or a newer car like a 2000s Mustang or something like that. There is an extremely cost-efficient way to drivetrain swap your classics, and it involves buying a whole new car. Now, when I say buying a whole new car, I don't exactly mean a whole new car, maybe what's left of what once was a pretty darn cool car. Now, behind me here is a 1979 Camaro Z28. Well, what's left of it. Now, as you guys can see, which I will show a little bit closer as I talk through here, some overview shots, some underside shots, things like that. This thing is extremely worse for wear at the moment, but that doesn't mean it's all bad. Now, looking at this car here, you guys can clearly tell it's not in the best of shape. The door is kind of Bluetooth. It's really rare lightweight convertible package. It's just completely flat top. It's like those concept cars, you know, this thing's worth a fair bit of money. But seriously, all jokes aside, if you look below the exterior of completely destroyed sheet metal, which I will tell you guys about in a second, this thing is actually great. Now, I will say I paid $650 for this car. Now, before you start lampooning me in the comments, let me show you around it.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Look at this thing is a complete hunk of junk. But if you look below the extremely worn out, beat up exterior, there is a heart of gold under this thing. Up front right here, those are disc brakes, which are not seized up. The master cylinder, everything works. That is a 350 that does spin over. We have tried it. There is a 4-speed that is buried up under there that you guys can't really see because of all the junk that's in here. See right there, there's the handle for it, which does move out of gear. Back here, we have the turbine wheels, everything like that. Now, getting to the back of the car, up under here, there is a 12-bolt in here with, on the tag, right there, it does say limited slip. Now, when I originally found this thing, it was the first time I had ever been to the junkyard. It was called Allstate Auto Salvage in Cameron, Missouri. Now, I forget exactly what we were doing whenever I saw it at the junkyard, but we were over there. I think we were dropping off a relative or a friend or something over there. Bingo night, that's what it was. We were bringing my friend's grandmother to bingo night, which was over there, just a couple miles away from the junkyard. And I saw this thing's tail end sticking out from the interstate or highway or whatever we were driving down. I thought it might have been a Firebird or something like that. I couldn't, see the roof and anything like that. I just saw the trunk area sticking out, and I'm like, I can't tell if that's a Firebird or Camaro, but I am a sucker for Firebirds, and I thought, I gotta go talk to at least that junkyard owner, see what this thing is, see if there's any way in hell I can bring it home, because I love this generation of Firebird specifically. Sadly, this thing did turn out to be a Camaro, but it wasn't all bad in the end. Now, I went down there. I did end up finding a couple cool project cars in there, which I did bring home. I brought home an 88 Thunderbird Turbo Coupe, which I did fix up and sold to another guy. That thing did have a lot of rust, so I ended up buying a 87 Turbo Coupe and using two decent cars to make one good car. Sold that whole off to a different guy who's, as far as I still know, driving those cars. They're pretty darn cool little cars. Little 2.3 turbos were fun cars. But enough about that. Let's talk about this thing. Now, back in 2021 is when I picked up that Turbo Coupe, and I immediately went into that junkyard and I said, hey, I saw, I don't know if it's Firebird or Camaro or something, but it's blue. I saw it from the interstate or highway or whatever I was on. I got to know what's the story on that thing. And the junkyard owner immediately looked at me. I was a younger kid at that time. I was probably 18, 19. He's like, oh, you want a real nice car, do you? Well, why don't you go look at it? It's so nice. It's over there. Why don't you go look at it? And needless to say, he wasn't lying when he said it was a nice car. I saw this thing from the front end. I'll post a couple pictures up here. I just took pictures of it because I thought, I'm not even going to go back there and look at it. I mean, there's no point. That thing's just a hunk of scrap metal anyways. I knew it would be an automatic. I knew it would be just a basic, maybe even a V6 car. I didn't know, but I didn't see any cool markings on it. I figured that thing's just a hunk of scrap metal. These things, at least in my opinion, I've seen these things everywhere. I'm like, there's no point in even going to look at that car. So I started walking back, and he goes, no, go back there and look at that car. And sure as hell I did. And when I went back there, I found this thing. Now, this is a 1979 Z28 Camaro, as I said earlier, with the 4-speed. And as soon as I saw that 4-speed, I went, oh my God, this thing is cool. I crawled up under there, saw the 12-bolt, which made it even more cool. And it has disc brakes on the front because, like I said, it was a Z28 car. So I went, oh my God, this thing is the perfect parts car. I just got to find something to put all this greatness into.
Now, fast forward a fair few years, I hadn't really found anything. You know, I was dealing a lot more in 80s, 90s cars, which isn't to say that you can't 350 swap those cars, but I've never really found something that was worthy of putting this coolness into it until I found that 64 Chevelle that we got last weekend. Now, that car actually came from the same junkyard, Allstate Auto Salvage up in Camden, Missouri, like I said earlier. And I immediately went to the guy when I was picking that car up. I said, hey, you know that old Camaro that you got back there that's completely mangled and mushed and everything like that?
Oh, she does roll.
They just picked it up and moved over that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
That thing's snapping in half.
Do you still have that? And he goes, yeah, I do. And I'm like, well, how much do you want for it? And he goes, let me think about that a little bit, and I'll give you a call back. And sure enough, a couple days later, he gave me a call, $650. And I couldn't say no at that. And it actually lined up perfectly because the next day, somebody messaged me about some tires and wheels I had for sale on Facebook Marketplace for $700. And I'm like, you know what? That's perfect. $50 for gas to go down there, pick it up, $650 to handle the perfect gentleman, and I've got the perfect parts car for my 64 Chevelle. Now, what happened to this car actually is a super big tragedy. This car actually is a one-owner car, if you believe it or not. If you don't count the junkyard, it is a one-owner car. Now, I know most of you guys are probably not going to believe that, but the owner of the junkyard himself has known the car since it was brand new. And I have dealt with him a lot in the past, bought a lot of cars that I flipped, fixed up or sold or parted out or anything like that. He's never lied to me, done me wrong, you know, trying to swindle me out of a thing. And even then, this thing didn't have a title. I'm clearly not buying this thing for the one-owner thing, so there was literally no point of lying to me if it was a one-owner car or not. But back in the 70s and 80s, car guys knew each other. There was no online forums. There was no message boards. There was nothing like that. The internet wasn't really even a thing back then. It sort of was, but it was still in its very infancy. So car guys kind of knew each other by where they lived. If you were, went to your local drag strip, saw a couple people, there's them damn birds again. If you went to your local junkyard, saw a couple people, you said, hey, I live over here. They go, oh, I recognize that car. I know the neighborhood you live in. Come over here and drink beers and work on a car with me. So everything was very word of mouth, and he knew the history of the car since it was brand new. Now, this was actually a graduation present for a car driving buddy of his. Now, for graduation, his parents bought him this brand new in 1979. Factory 350, 4-speed, limited slip, Z28 Camaro. This thing was all beautiful blue. I bet this thing looked absolutely gorgeous when it was brand new. And he loved the crap out of this car. A little bit too much, actually. Now, the story is, in the next 3 or 4 years, all he ever did in this thing was get street racing tickets, getting DUIs, getting excessive speed tickets, everything like that. His parents said, you need to knock that crap off immediately or else we are going to take away the car. Well, fast forward another year or two, and he didn't. He kept getting all that stuff, and his license suspended even because he was drink driving so much. Now we're taking the car away from you. You're not going to kill yourself or anybody because you're stupid and you're drinking and driving. And it got thrown in the backyard where it sat for years and years and years. Now, 5-6 years later, he finally got his license back. He convinced his parents he had changed, and the whole thing started all over again with a different car. It was some sort of Dodge, had a V8, and he did the same exact thing. He got drink driving tickets, he got street racing tickets, yada, yada, yada. So it got tossed in the backyard as well. And that's where this thing sat for the best part of 35, 40 years until 2019, 2020, right around that era. Now, this thing was in the junkyard for about 4.5, 5 years before I picked it up. That's what they remember. Exact dates are a little bit hazy because, as I will show you guys when we do a walkthrough of that junkyard, there is a lot of coolness in that junkyard.
Oh, she does roll.
We're walking back in here. It didn't take us more than 10 minutes to find this. This is pretty cool. It's an old Detroit diesel. It's got the 8.2 liter on it. Yeah, a little automatic, 4-wheel drive. But yeah, there's the mecca of engines and everything. We'll look at that in a second. We're gonna walk over there in a second, but I want to look at these old school. Oh, he's got a motorcycle back here. Dude, look at that, dude. That one right into my ear. Oh yeah. This is sick.
Got the AMC motor in it.
Got side pipes.
Mm-hmm.
Do a whole video on that. I am going to post a probably right around 2 hour long video of just me and a buddy who came down there to pick this car up with me, just walking through that junkyard and finding all the cool stuff that's in it. But around 2019, 2020, there was a big argument. He came back and he said, I want that car. Those things are worth some money now. I want to fix it up and sell it. And they said, That's cute because that thing is still titled in our name. You never even put that thing in your name. It was never your car to begin with. It has always been our car. Your license is still suspended because you can't stop drinking and driving. We are not giving you that car. And a whole big argument ensued, and it ended with the demise of this car. Now, the parents at this point were tired of shuffling this thing back and forth, moving it from yard to yard, moving it out of the way whenever they mowed, and the argument just kind of set off. The spiral ended up killing this car. Now that argument kept getting worse and worse, so before long they went, you know what? I have a perfect idea for this car so that you can't have it, I can't have it, nobody can have it. They got a backhoe or a tractor, one of those two. I'm a little bit hazy on the story. Went out and legitimately just smashed the crap out of this car. They said, I know you know the junkyard owner that I'm gonna sell this thing to. I'm gonna beat this thing up so that even when it goes to the junkyard, you cannot buy it back from them and kill somebody or yourself on the road while being an idiot. So that's where this thing's story ended. It sat in the junkyard for 4 or 5 years. They said, like I said, sometime in 2019, 2020, the guy called him and said, come pick this piece of crap up, haul it to the junkyard. I do not care anymore. I want it gone. And sadly, that's what happened. This thing really didn't have much life in it. I believe on the odometer, I see 27,852 miles, and I believe that to be accurate. This thing didn't even get 30,000 miles before it was completely crushed. And again, I do believe that because the junkyard owner said this thing legitimately wasn't on the road for more than 5 years. So, and even then he said it might be a little bit of a stretch. It's probably closer to 3 or 4. So I do believe 27,000 miles is legitimately what this car had. It was a one-owner car. It was a really, really nice car, apart from the fact it didn't come with T-tops. I do love T-tops. This thing was a hard top. But this thing was a super, super, super nice car until a little idiot who couldn't stop street racing and drink driving ruined it for everybody. But on the bright side, I got this whole car for 650 bucks, and we're going to use it to make that Malibu of mine a hell of a lot better. Now, I'm going to be doing everything here on this channel, like always, but it's going to be in my driveway. I want to show you guys that you can build any hot rod you reasonably want in your driveway. You don't have to have a big shop like I do. You don't have to have a lift. You don't have to have all these fancy tools. There are some tools you're obviously going to need, like an engine hoist, a torque wrench, jack stands, a jack, all that stuff to do something of this nature. Obviously, you're not going to be able to just will the motor out of this car into that other car. But you don't need a big shop, a big lift, big money, snap-on tools and everything to do a cool little hot rod in your driveway. Now, there are some tools I am going to use that you guys might not have, but are needed for something of this nature. I'm going to try not to push it too far, as I'm not going to use a lift. I'm not going to use any fancy tools, but here and there you might see a welder that I use. You might see some power tools, an impact driver, things like that. There are things that you guys do need in your shop to do something of this nature. This isn't just putting a junkyard 350 into a car that came with a junkyard 350. This is a whole drivetrain, rear end, suspension, disc brake swap, everything from this car into that car. So it's going to be decently in depth, but I'm going to try to keep it believable for all you guys at home so that you guys can maybe get a little bit of inspiration to finally get that project of yours up and running and not wait until you have a giant shop with a lift to do it. Now, speaking of this channel, you guys have been awesome. I am at 500 subscribers now. It is super, super cool to see you guys liking the videos, subscribing to them, watching them, all that stuff. We are super close to being monetized. I am only about 1,000 watch hours off of being monetized. I don't know if you guys know this, but on YouTube, you can get monetized. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of guys know that, but the stipulations have changed most recently in the last couple of years. It is post 3 videos in the last month or something like that, or maybe I'll have to look a little bit better, but I'll post a screenshot up of it. It's post 3 videos in a certain amount of time. I believe it's 90 days now that I think of it. Have 500 subscribers and have one of 2, which is a view hour counter for either your normal videos or shorts. We are super close to getting monetized. We have the 500 subscribers. We have the 3 videos posted in the last 90 days. We're about 1,000 watch hours off of being monetized on this channel, and I cannot thank you guys enough for it. Now, before we get out of here, I do want to do a little bit of a plug. I did a lot of junkyard crawling on that episode where we went to pick this thing up with a buddy of mine. He was there. We just kind of spewed off information we knew about cars, engines, everything like that. Did a cool walk around of that junkyard. I will post a little ping right up here at the top of the video on this side, actually, now that I think of it. I do want to say first and foremost about those director's cut videos. I will apologize. There's probably going to be a little bit of a profanity in there. They're going to be a lot longer videos, so if I miss an offhanded joke or a swear word here and there, I don't bleep it, I apologize. But I do try to make most of my main channel content kid-friendly, because that's how I got into cars as a kid, watching old Top Gear, watching Roadkill, things like that. If I didn't have that as a kid, I probably would have never got into this stuff. And growing up, I had some strict parents, so if there was a bunch of curse words and things like that in there, they would have never let me watch it. So I do have a little bit of a soft spot on my channel for a younger audience that are looking to get into something cool and old. So a lot of the times with my main channel videos, I do edit it where it's digestible for a younger audience. But on those longer videos, again, I might let a curse word or two slip by because they're going to be multiple hours long of a bunch of different off takes and cuts and everything like that. So I apologize if something slips through the cracks. But without further ado, this is Josh from Riskers Wrenches. This is legitimately the cheapest way to do a drivetrain swap on your new car or old car. It's a lot easier on an older car. There's a lot less wires to do, especially if you're doing a whole new motor, whole new transmission, whole new rear end. There's a lot less wiring and things like that to do. But if you want to do a drivetrain swap on your project car, buy something like this. Buy a car that's got cool stuff in it. The motor's cool, the transmission's cool, the rear end's cool, but the rest of it's junk. But when they're all beat up like this, you'll have nobody yelling at you saying, oh, I could have saved that car. That was a 1 of 15. It was worth so much money, blah, 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 blah. Nobody's going to care about it when a car's this mangled. And you can get it, like I said, for dirt cheap. I paid $650 for this car, which is pretty much less than what I would have paid for that rear end, let alone the clutch pedals, let alone the manual transmission, let alone the 350 that's in it, let alone the disc brake part. All that stuff. This is the cheapest way to drivetrain swap your project. This is Josh from Riskers Wrenches. Now, anything I do to my project, as always, will end up on this channel. You guys will see it down in my playlist, down in the description. Recommended videos that you'll see, pop up every now and then in the corner of a video. Shorts, posts on TikTok, YouTube, all that stuff. You guys will see it here on this channel. This is Josh from Riskers Wrenches, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Oh my gosh. Dreams are made of these. Give them a tune up. Look at that.
Yummers.